Dumilang Absheni Ralocha Sanwanani Mulweni. My name is Naledi Mfoloe, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the latest edition of the African Diaspora News channel, where we unravel the stories that shape our world and our communities. Now, in the latest news, right, the US President Donald Trump has warned the Brics countries that if they try to create a new currency to challenge the US dollar, he will impose 100% tariffs on them. Now, in a post on his Truth Social network, Trump said that the idea of Brics moving away from the US dollar is over. He added that Brics countries must promise not to create a currency or they will face serious trade penalties. Now, he said, and I quote, "We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new Brics currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs." So, why does this matter? Brics is a group of 5 major emerging economies, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This year, countries like Iran and United Arab Emirates and Ethiopia and Egypt has actually joined Brics. Now, they have been talking about reducing their dependence on the US dollar, which is used in most international trade. Now, many people in these countries believe that relying too much on the US dollar is actually risky. But Trump, on the other hand, has made it quite clear that the US will not allow this. He wants the US dollar to be a powerful currency in the world, and he's threatening harsh economic measures if other countries try to challenge this. But as a Black South African reporter, I honestly cannot help but feel both a sense of frustration and disbelief at the recent comments by Donald Trump regarding the Brics nation. Trump's stern warning to the Brics countries that they must commit to not creating a new currency or risk facing 100% tariffs is quite frankly a true reminder of the way global power dynamics are tilted in favor of the US. Now, I'm sure there are many people who would argue, right, that Trump is simply protecting the US interests, but the reality is that this kind of economic bullying is a reflection of the deep inequalities that persist in the global financial system. I mean, the US dollar has long been a dominant global currency, but that dominance doesn't just come from economic might or stability. It actually comes from a history of control, from Bretton Woods agreements to the imposition of sanctions of countries that attempt to challenge the dollar's role. Now, here in South Africa, a country that is part of the Brics group, we've actually witnessed firsthand the struggles of emerging economies to break free from the tilt grip that the US and its currency actually hold on the global market. Brics was born, right, in part out of the desire to provide an alternative to the West economic dominance, which is a space where countries like South Africa could have a voice that wasn't dictated by the US or Europe. And yet, Trump's comments only serve to reinforce the power imbalances that continues to benefit the US at the expense of countries in the global south. And let's not forget, right, that the talk of the de-dollarization, especially within Brics, has intensified in recent years. I mean, after all, why would countries like South Africa and Brazil or Russia continue to be forced into a system where they are dependent on a currency that is actually controlled thousands of miles away? Why should our trade agreements, our economies, our futures be tied to a currency that is so easily manipulated by a single nation? And Trump's threats of 100% tariffs, if carried out, would be nothing short of economic warfare. And while the idea of a new Brics currency has not yet gained traction, the very fact that this is being discussed actually shows the desire for change. And the US may hold economic leverage, but such a heavy-handed tactics will only alienate the countries that are already wary of American intentions. And I believe it's important to note that Trump is not just targeting Brics in isolation. His broader strategy is of imposing tariffs on any country he feels threatens American dominance is actually quite troubling. I mean, countries like China and Mexico, for example, have already been warned of steep tariffs hikes if they don't comply with the US demands on trade or immigration. And while these threats may be a form of negotiation, as some of Trump's allies claim, the underlying messaging is clear. Play by the US rules or face punishment. And from my perspective, I think that the problem is that the US is operating from a place of fear. The dollar's position as the global reserve currency is being challenged. And while the US holds most of the cards today, I do believe that the world is changing. And countries are looking for ways to protect themselves from unpredictable nature of the US foreign policy and its economic sanctions. I mean, in a way, Trump's threats are a reflection of how much he fears losing that control. But no matter how many tariffs he imposes, no matter how many threats he makes, the global economy is evolving. And South Africa and the other Brics nations are part of that change. And for me, as a South African, it's also a reminder of how important it is to have an economic systems that work for all nations and not just the powerful few. The global financial system, as it stands today, has been built to benefit the wealthiest nations. And as someone from a country that has long been on the receiving end of this inequality, I actually see Brics as an important platform for challenging that system and for pushing for a more just and equitable global economy. And of course, right, no one is saying that the US should be pushed out of the global economy or that the dollar should be immediately be dethroned. But I believe that the reality is that the world is moving towards a more multipolar order where countries are increasingly seeking alternatives to the US dollar. And Trump's threats may be effective in the short term, but in the long term, I believe they may only fuel the desire for change. And the way forward, I think, is not through economic intimidation or through the imposition of tariffs, but it's through dialogue, cooperation, and the willingness to acknowledge that the US does not have monopoly on global economic leadership. And I think that we're entering an era where countries like South Africa, Brazil, India, and China, through Brics, are standing up for their interests. But the question now is whether the US will recognize that it's no longer the only game in town. We'll have to wait and see how Brics responds to these threats. For now, Trump seems ready to use tariffs as a way to force countries to stay loyal to the dollar. But the world is changing, and it seems many countries are ready to explore other options. Whether this will lead to real change or simply more tensions, only time will tell. What do you think? Please, let's continue the conversation in the comments section. And while you're at it, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. That's it from me. Till we meet again, it is goodbye.